Hello again, everyone. To those of you just hopping on now, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. A few reminders, your mics and your videos are turned off, but I know that our panelists are super eager to hear from you. So please take advantage of our chat, send us your questions in the Q&A, and keep your eyes out for some fun polls we're going to be launching later on. We also have some exciting giveaway news for 20 lucky people who are joining us tonight. More details on that to come at the end. And then I very quickly want to thank everyone who helped us make tonight happen. We really had a great team. Thank you to our small business partners, Cup of Community, Lush Board, and Resurgence Brewing Company. Hopefully you were able to take advantage of some of their special deals that they had for us tonight. And of course, a huge thank you to our main event partner, Project Best Life. We couldn't think of a better partner to work with for our Shelf Love Book Club. And with that, it is our pleasure to introduce from Project Best Life, Peter Sosha.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending tonight. And thank you, everybody at Buffalo Magazine and Tiffanie and Sydney for doing this. We're really excited, with these virtual events, you don't really know how things are going to go, but to have this many people attending and this many people interested in this book club is really great. So thank you all for attending. I think we probably all know what Buffalo Magazine is. That's probably how you found out about this event, but you may be wondering, what is Project Best Life? So Project Best Life was founded by Roswell Park in 2019 as a way to sort of inspire young adults, millennials, to live healthy and happier lives. Being that we are affiliated with Roswell Park, we certainly know how precious life is and how it can be flipped upside down at a moment's notice. And we also know that a lot of unhealthy behaviors can cause devastating disease. And while we've made a lot of great strides in cancer research and cancer treatment over the years, sadly, young adult cancers are on the rise. So we started Project Best Life as a way to really empower people to take back control of their lives and as a tool to take tangible steps to be their healthy and happy selves. Yes, again, we're connected to Roswell Park, but yes, there will be a little bit of cancer prevention stuff sprinkled in, but we're really doing this from a holistic perspective. And we're really trying to use Project Best Life as a way to, give young people a way and guidance, a way to, have a happy, healthy, and balanced life. So mental health tips, wellness tips, financial wellness, ways to give back, inspiration. You can all find this sort of stuff on projectbestlife.org. We have a lot of blogs out there. We're continuously putting content out there. We also have a podcast that's going to be launching called Happy and Healthy. Season 3 will be launching soon. I believe some of you have opted into our bi-weekly newsletter by signing up to this event, which is great. If you haven't done so, definitely be sure, I'll drop a link in the chat here, but be sure to subscribe to our newsletter as well. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming out over the next couple months. Fingers crossed, hopefully we can start having some wellness events here in the summer and fall. But yeah, if you're, trying to start your wellness journey or, coming out of the winter of the pandemic, restart your wellness journey, Project Best Life can be a great tool for doing so. So again, please check out projectbestlife.org for more advice and some of our content. And again, thank you all so much for attending, and thank you to our local business partners and everybody at Buffalo Magazine. This is really great. So excited to see where this takes us.
Thank you so much, Peter. And now I'm going to go ahead and pass things off to our first panelist, Danielle Osher.
Hi, everyone. Successfully unmuted myself, so we're already off to a good start. And thank you, Peter, for sharing about Project Best Life. It was a natural partnership because, obviously we care very much about a happy, healthy, balanced life. So, and to me, part of that is reading. So that is why we were all here today. I'm Danielle Osher, editor of Buffalo Magazine. Super excited to be joined by two panelists that I'm going to introduce now. Sydney, why don't you take it away?
Awesome. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much again for joining us. My name is Sydnie Perkins, and I work with the Alliance Foundation at Rousseau Park and do social media for them there. And I'm just super excited to be with you tonight, and I'm excited to be with Buffalo Magazine. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Project Best Life.
Tiffanie, there you go.
Muted, as if I don't do this all day, every day. I'm Tiffanie, so excited to be here. I am a contributor to Buffalo Magazine and a new interested person in Project Best Life. I love the mission, and I'm so excited to be able to be joining Danielle and Sydnie with this book club, and super excited to talk about the book tonight as an OG Pride and Prejudice lover.
Yes, oh my gosh, me too. So one of the very exciting benefits of starting a book club is that I got to pick the first book. You will all help us pick what we read next, but I couldn't resist the opportunity to pick a read for all of us. And as Tiffanie said, I am also a huge Jane Austen fan. I actually remember watching the BBC miniseries when I was a kid. I used to rent the VHSs from the library. So there you go, throwback. If you haven't seen it, it's great. And when, a big silver lining for me during COVID was I have been able to read more than I've probably read in a decade. And then I hit the wall of like, what am I going to read? I'm out of new ideas to read. And I came across this fantastic book and I thought, all right, well, I love Pride and Prejudice. I'm a little skeptical about remakes. Like, how can you make something that is so close to my heart better? But it was free from the library. So I figured if I didn't like it, I could always just return it. And I got hooked. I think I did that thing where you're sitting in bed at night and you're like, I'm gonna read. And then next thing you know, you're like dropped your Kindle or your book and it's on your bed and you're like, I'm going to bed now. I will pick this up in the morning. So that is in case you couldn't guess, I loved this book. I thought it was the perfect combination of true to the spirit of the source material. Somebody has too much pride, somebody has too much prejudice, they hit it off wrong, and then we slowly watch as that gets completely redefined and they get to know each other and see each other for who they really are, while also being really fresh and different from the original, very modern. It gave really incredible character development, giving insight into different kinds of family backgrounds and lifestyles. So yes, I obviously recommend the book. Let's see, Sydnie, what did you think about it?
I really enjoyed the read. I feel like this is something unlike that I've never really read before. Like, I did read Pride and Prejudice back in high school, but not in this family setting. I feel like it was a whole new refreshing environment. I feel like I was actually a part of the family for a little bit. I felt like I was like Trisha's cousin, just like watching and listening. I really did enjoy, watching her and DJ kind of learn that they depended on each other, like learn that they were all the same. Even Emma, like they all learned that they were just so in love with their work, and that was all that they thought, whether it was art or food or medicine, they were so involved in it, ingrained in it. I feel like in times in like our life, especially now, no matter what it can be, whether it's work or not at work, we're ingrained in it. We're really involved in it. It's gonna be all consuming at times. So I feel like this is a great release from just regular everyday life. I feel like it was a good opportunity to go to California to kind of get a little vibe, to kind of taste the foods, taste the flavors. And I really enjoyed it. How about you, Tiffanie?
I love that. And I definitely felt like, as I was reading, I was like, all of the just like talking about the sunshine, even just when they mentioned that they were like at the beach or on the coast, I was like, what would that feel like to actually be doing that right now? But yeah, same. As a lover of Pride and Prejudice, I read part of the book in high school. I don't know if I ever read it, the whole thing, might have spark noted it a little bit. But a lover of the movie. I have the DVD. I actually have two DVDs of it because I thought that I lost it one time and then bought it again because that's how much of a comfort movie it is for me. And just the book, I agree, like with the modernization, I felt like it was a lot easier to really resonate with the characters. Obviously, I love Pride and Prejudice for the book and for what it is in the source material, but also being like, oh, I can agree of like when you're working and kind of feeling like this, or when you're dating, like when she's like texting the guy and is like, oh wait, like I have to cancel again, and then like meeting DJ and having those like conflicting feelings. And I think just like bringing in all of the modern ways, and the fact that it was switched, right? Like Darcy was the one that was actually the technical poor one, or the one coming from inferior means, compared to Trisha being the affluent one. So yeah, I just really liked it. I think someone in the chat said they're looking forward to the sequel, and I'm like, same. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's actually really funny too, because I loved how the throwbacks were really subtle. So if you'd read the original, they used the names to give it away. So Julia Wickham, you're like, uh-oh, Wickham, something's up. But just like in the original, it takes you probably 3/4 of the book to figure out what she's up to. So you're on high alert, but you have no idea what she's gonna do.
Okay, so I have a question, because they mention, once they say that Darcy is DJ's first name, they mention the fact that the mom named him and Emma after the characters, but I was like, is no one thinking about the fact that Julia's last name is Wickham? Like, I was like, in this universe of the book, I was like, it's too literal, right? Like it not irked me, but I was like, I get the like nod to it, but I was like, okay, if you know that you were named after the characters in Pride and Prejudice, you know that the villain is Wickham, right? So
Right.
like, you should already have that feeling about her from the beginning.
That is such a great point. I didn't think about. I love that. And I actually saw Kelly in the chat raise something that us panelists, we couldn't resist talking about the book before we joined you, which is that I think we all agreed that the first half of the book was a little bit harder to get through. It was the background information. It was laying the foundations that you understood the characters, but the pace really picked up, or at least we found the pace really picked up into the second half when we got into finally like the payoff for all of that information. And so, you know, Kelly, I saw you said you couldn't get into it. We actually understand that. I think I was saying to these two that I was lucky in that I knew the original story to know that it was, you know, the slow build, and then it would all unravel. But, you know, I can completely understand how that happened. All right, we already touched on this a little bit, but I always like to ask, you know, what spoke to you in this book? You know, for me, I thought they did such a great job, and Sydnie, you mentioned this, like weaving passion into everything that was happening. And I was so into how Trisha was not into food, you know, couldn't even remember to eat but then, you know, she tastes DJ's food and it becomes all she can think about. Even before she likes him, she just is connected deeply to his food. I thought that was such a interesting way to weave in connection, and how it's not always, you know, talking or person-to-person interaction. It can be connecting to somebody's work and what they're passionate about. I'm curious, Sydnie, what spoke to you?
Yeah, and to go off of your point, I also liked how when DJ even said like how she felt like Trisha was always been like, I'm a doctor and you're just a cook. And he's like, well, I am nourishing people. We're both saving people's lives. Like clearly, if you didn't eat, you would not be able to take care of your family or your patients, and you need to eat. So I totally echo that piece. But I really, really appreciated the family unit, like the strong family unit. I feel like that was something that was, you know, was nice to read about. I've never experienced like an Indian family close in that proximity in my real life. So it was really good to like kind of feel the vibe, to kind of see that they have like this rich history. But then there's another part when they come to America, and how do they assimilate? If they're royal, they are able to keep their heritage. If they're poor, they kind of have to assimilate. So that was really interesting to me. And I think just the family unit of like even the mom, like even just Trisha being the one that like kind of helped her guilt. Like, you know, they all said, Trisha, we love you. Like, you know, and her brother was like, you keep saying sorry, and that's all of your conversations. We could have just moved past this by now, and it wasn't even her fault. So I think it was really cool to see how the family unit kind of moved around, to see everybody's roles, to see how they literally called it the animal farm. You know, they kind of made jokes on themselves, like HRH and all these things. And I feel like the family unit to me was cool because I feel like I'm very close to my family. I don't have as large as a family or by any means, as influential as a family, but it was really cool to kind of get the vibe of like, how family matters and like nothing can come against them.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And in that same storyline, something that spoke to me was that sort of internal monologue that is, setting a wrong expectation, right? Like that whole estrangement with her family. And when she goes through that process of really looking at it and deciding that she wants to change it, and then realizing how much of it was self-imposed or based off of kind of like an assumption. So a miscommunication or because of a lack of communication. And then when she finally got the courage to have conversations with her family, it really all came crumbling down and they were able to reconnect. I thought, that's something I think we can all relate to is, sometimes you mull things over in your head all the time and you keep going. And it's like, sometimes the best thing to do is just put it all on the table and have the honest conversation so that you can, not assume that you actually know the entire situation from everybody's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Tiffanie? What spoke to you?
I totally agree. And that was honestly a huge part. Like like I said, I kind of really got into it towards the second half, and the whole thing with her brother and her family. As someone, I have anxiety and I talk about that a lot, and I felt like that was one place where I was like, I wonder if that is like, that's obviously what she's suffering from, like that kind of like anxiety, perfectionism, like that's literally me. I'm like, oh my God, that's like, I'm always like thinking someone is like mad at me, or like thinking that someone is upset with me, or I did something wrong. But just like having that courage to speak up and like ask the clarifying question, like we're so hard on ourselves, even for mistakes, right? And I think that it just showed the kind of, obviously like the pride, but also the fact that it comes a lot from fear and wanting to be accepted and basically kind of just resigning to the fact that you did something wrong. Because I think our society is like so hard on each other of like, if you do something wrong, it's really hard to like get back into the good graces of people and try to like make that work. And for Trisha, she was not okay, but like she was willing to kind of like basically lose her family for 15 years to basically repent for something that she was a kid. Like once they were really focusing on the fact that like she was 17 and in college, and it was such a heavy thing. Like when I was kind of like throughout the first half, every time they mentioned the Julia thing, I was like, what did she do? Like I couldn't think of what would have happened. So when it came to like she's sexually, it's all like she committed rape on Josh, and that the focus was on like what he had done wrong instead of the fact that like he was a victim. I felt like she really captured like so many really important topics and like very relevant topics, especially right now. And the fact that it could have like you said, Sydnie, been really like smoothed out with communication, but also just kind of like, I think that it will resonate with people. And feel free to put in the chat like if you felt that way, of just the fact that like we're so hard on ourselves, and like we should really, I think like what I took from was like give ourselves grace and like have the courage to like ask for forgiveness, or just even like bring it up to the person that you might be afraid to talk to, because they also are feeling that way, which I think is how the family, like when she had that heart to heart with her mom and then with HRH, like they were all kind of dealing with the same thing.
I think you brought up such a good point, Tiffanie, like about being honest and having that honest communication. Because when she had even that honest moment with DJ, when she told him that I'm attracted to you, and his honesty was so harsh and so brutal that she kind of ruminated on it for like days afterwards. But either way, I feel like in those moments, both good and bad, those things that we ruminate make us grow. Like if someone gives you a good compliment, if someone really like, says something that hurts you, you're thinking about it, but you grow from it after some point. And there were so many times, like Liz said in the chat, that like the miscommunication, she would say, I wish I would have said this, but then she would delete the text, or she was thinking of saying this, but then she wouldn't say it. So I think that's so true of like, give yourself grace, because, you know, when you're talking to someone, you know, when her father or mother or anybody said something to her, it wasn't like that was the end all be all. They could say the most rude things to her and she would still come back because she loved them. And it's probably the same thing the other way around. You know, she would say, you know, to her dad, like, Dad, you're really being, like, did anybody care that I won this grant? You know, anything like that. I'm sure they would say, you're right, honey. We're so sorry. We appreciate you too. But you're right. Giving ourselves grace and being willing to just say what we need to say.
Yeah. I love those words, you know, grace, courage, and honesty. And spoiler for people who haven't read the original, respectful truth is a really big part of that as well. One of my favorite scenes from the original Pride and Prejudice is Darcy proposes and she flat out just says no in this really emotional scene that is just stripped down honest truth. And I thought respectful truth, you know, not meant to hurt, but just like this is where I'm at, we're not on the same page. And I thought this book did such a great job of having that everywhere. And it really identified fear across so many different areas, you know, all the different storylines. And as both of you were saying, you know, the want to say things and not saying them, or, you know, hiding her pregnancy because she was just so terrified of having to go through that journey again with her family if something didn't work out. And I thought there were so many storylines happening in this book to follow, but I found so many of them incredibly relatable. And also it makes you think. And I think talking to you both clearly says I wasn't the only one who stopped to think of like, wait a second, am I doing any of this in my own life? Like, can I learn from her journey? And what can I learn from her journey? But yeah, it actually ties perfectly into what I wanted to say next, which is our favorite quotes from this book. There were a lot. I'll be honest, the one that keeps sticking with me is not super fancy or dramatic, but I think it speaks to this really well, and it summed up the book for me. It happens at the end, right after the big fundraiser, and DJ and Trish finally have their sort of lay it all out there moment of truth, where, you know, I love it because it's like, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, but you don't have to apologize, no, but you don't have to apologize. The narrator, so there it's stuck in between quotes. The narrator says, the more fair he'd been, or the more unfair he'd been, the more fair she became. And I thought that was in one sentence, the book, but also such a common like relationship dynamic. You know, you can start off being really unfair, but when somebody matches that energy, you're like, wait a second, you see them for being unfair and it measures you back. And so I don't know, it's just a sneaky line hiding in there, but I kept thinking about it as we kind of prepped for today. And Tiffanie, I'm curious what your favorite quote was.
I really love that. And I feel like I missed that. I think I mentioned in the chat, I switched to audiobook. So I definitely, I switched through it probably after the first third of the book. So whenever I would like be doing something like doing the dishes and I heard something and I was like, wait, and I had to pause it and then like take off my gloves and like write it down. So I definitely want to try to find where that quote was. So I have a couple. I feel bad because I don't want to take one of Sydnie, but so I kind of wanted to do like one that was really kind of in regards to the theme of like the Pride and Prejudice, and then one towards the end once it got to like the mushy like romance part, because I was like, that also is like a huge part of the book. So this one quote says, the syntax of Prejudice threaded into conversations with the perfect pauses and facial expressions was like ciphers and spy codes, the meaning clear to those it was meant for, to everyone else it was harmless scribbles easy enough to deny. And this was right after they had gotten approached by the cop after trying to break into the car. And I think that especially with the, like, there's so many different themes, and like I mentioned, like very relevant ones, right? Like about like police brutality and like the fact that like she immediately took out her phone, and the author I think really handled it light-handedly, like she wasn't trying to be kind of like preachy or whatever, but also like the reality of the situation, like they're Black and brown, like DJ is a mix between Black and Indian, and Trisha is Indian. So it's like bringing in the reality of the situation, and also saying that like this is the reality that people have to live with. And as someone who like does a lot of work with like diversity, equity, inclusion, like it really, I felt like it spoke to me and was like, yes, this is a perfect way to say it, because when they showed that switch of, they were like, once he got called out, he was like, he was just a kid, but it's like, he's in this position of power and he's prejudiced against these two people of color in an affluent neighborhood or in this space, breaking into a flashy Porsche, you know, like what are the indications of why he would have that implicit bias? And then, so two more, sorry, I'll be quick. And then one, when she was having the confrontation with Julia, she said, Trisha knew a million ways to lobotomize a human. Could she please just use one of those on this woman?
I remember that quote.
I died. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm a true crime fiend and also just like love satire. So I was just like, oh my God, yes. Like every time Trisha was like a little bitchy, can I swear? Like a little, like I was just like, yes, girl. And then in regards to like the kind of the romance part towards the end, like right after they had their first kiss, the narrator said, and he fell, an anchor sinking to the ocean floor, slow and hard. Swoon.
So beautiful.
Like, yeah, that just like really hit me. Like I actually listened to that like a couple of times just because like that whole section of like when they have that first kiss and like in the movie Pride and Prejudice, like if anyone has not watched it, I'm going to tell all of you to please go and do that. You can watch it on Amazon tonight if you have that. We're anti-Amazon, but you know, sometimes you got to do it. But when they have that moment, it's so beautiful. And I think that they made it such a great moment in the book that I was like, I had to mention that. So Sydney, about you.
I love those all, Tiffany. I literally do. And like, I feel like there were so many like that, there were even so many like, you know, conversations between the characters. They're like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful, beautiful moment. But I think overall, I just narrowed mine down to two that I think just summed up, first of all, like just in general situation. I think in general, our situation while I was going through it, but mine was on page 118, where, you know, Trisha was really just going through like, it was just the buildup, you know, her every single day trying to be Miss Perfect, DJ, you know, showing that he was like trying to perfect his food, every single thing mattered to him. His sister, you know, really wanted to be an artist and, you know, just really running into this wall and just getting the news fresh. But the line was, you know, we're not God. And she said, we are tramped down to urge to stick to a finger to her mouth and gag. She said, why do people say that? No one knew for sure, why God even existed. Like people were just questioning so many things at this time. And I think for Trisha, like, everybody in this entire thing, there were moments when they wish they were God. Like literally DJ was like, can I just get this catering food done? Can she not ruin my caramel? Can I just get to this fundraising thing? Can she not like belittle me at every single turn? Emma, she was like, can I not go blind? Every single moment, even her sister when she was pregnant, can she keep a baby? All these things are just, people were trying again so hard against that perfectionism. I think this is just, again, people trying to be what they're like, like HRH, trying to kind of build up to like this name that no one could really live up to, like the Anchorage, trying to be and trying to belong in this house that like, only, fleets can be in. So it's like, things like that. It was like that part. And then my second favorite quote was, I think this is just a favorite for all of us book lovers, and it was on page 201. It said, if I didn't read, I wouldn't know how to believe that there was more to this world than this. And I love that. And I was like, that's so cool. And I think it's just so beautiful. I think this, especially again, because I have not had an experience with the Indian family, like in my immediate relationship, arms closed. So it was really nice to really feel like I was like eating the food, to really feel like I was like tasting it. So I think it's just another great experience, especially in a modern story. Pride and Prejudice is such a like, thing that we either run into because it's such a classic either in high school or in the movie. But this is just a great new modern take on it. And I felt like, I really enjoyed it. I felt like I could definitely, jump into it through this book.
Yeah. I think if the chat hints at it, I think they'll agree that the food in this book, and especially also talking about the chai tea. I was like, can I please just go to her cafe and get that, whatever this chai tea is, because it sounds incredible. And I loved how real and tangible, right? Like we can't even see it. It's a book. It's just words describing those things to us. And yeah, it feels so real. It's like we can almost taste it. And super fun fact, if you read the rest of the series, that is a continuing thread, a passion for food. So it never hurts, right?
I love that. It definitely made me hungry. And also I saw someone asked in the chat why I switched to audio. I wrote it out, but just wanted to make sure, since I know that it can get lost. I was mentioning before we started to Danielle and Sydnie, that my book on the Libby app, which is the library app, if you haven't used it before, all you need is a library card and you can register for any of like the Buffalo library networks. You only get to borrow it for 7 days, and it lapsed because it took me a while to get through the first half, and I had credits on Audible, so it made it easier to just be able to do it while I was like doing chores and stuff. But I also think that having the audio experience like actually really intensified the experience. So like when, especially honestly with the food, they were talking about it, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like I'm cooking dinner, I'm like, I would actually rather like to get it from here. But also when you listen to it towards the end, when it starts to get a little hot and heavy, I was like, ooh, I can feel the emotions that are coming from the reader. They definitely have a good audiobook author or reader in that. So if you kind of are thinking about the two, like I'm a huge book hoarder, I have a ton, but because of COVID, I use the app. So Audible is actually also a good option too.
And can we just take a moment to just like recognize and appreciate DJ? Like I was like, if someone could just think about feeding me the way this man is like thinking about the sauces and like the spices and how it goes on her palate, I was like, this is perfection. Like that's only in a book.
Dream man.
Well, maybe not. It looks like Julia's been making some delicious French toast. Can you share, please?
Oh,
I'd like
please,
some.
girl.
This is actually, Tiffanie, perfect lead-in to, I think, my favorite question. Do we think that this would make a good movie? I think I was like 3/4 of the way and I was like, can somebody please make this into like a Netflix special or a movie or a really big budget movie? Because
no, I feel like it needs to be like big budget, crazy rich Asians version, like just like The Armory. Could you imagine? Compare that to like, and I don't know if you've seen Crazy Rich Asians, but like the houses when they go over to Asia, I'm just like, excuse me. So
yeah, we need to see what Anchorage looks like as a set. That's for sure.
Like everything. And then also just I've said this to Danielle and Sydnie because we talked a bit before you guys came on in regards to the movie question. Yes, we need to make it a movie, but also I was super with DJ just like the visualization. I'm a super visual reader, so I will just like, I actually like see a movie in my head when I read, which I learned that that's not how everyone like processes information. But I think that it would be amazing if we had Idris Elba as DJ and then Mindy Kaling as Trisha.
You're on Twitter, tweet at them right now.
Girl.
Just
make this happen.
Just saying. Could you imagine Idris Elba?
Girl, I could not. Like I could Idris Elba feeding anybody anything. Like absolutely not. Like, oh, that is too much of a dream, Kim. We need to make that happen. We should even, I was literally stalking the author's Instagram like all day today. And I was like, you know, she just seems like such a relatable person. Like I just wanted to message her and just say, we're talking about your book tonight. Like, thank you. But literally, I absolutely think this could be a movie. I think it's just like, just again, because these stories need to be shared. Like again, Pride and Prejudice and other flavors. Like these are all other flavors. I think it's just showing something that I think we could all enjoy. I think I also would really like to see Emma, you know, personify. I think it'll be really cool to see who they pick for her, because I think she does have a little bit more of a backstory that I'm sure a movie would probably show a little bit more, because she is such a colorful character. And then absolutely DJ, but I think I do just want to see her whole family. You know, I want to see the family mixtures, like the grandma, you know, even like I forget her name, but was it her aunt that was like she was like a telepath. She could like see the future. And I was like, I just wanted to see the family dynamic come to real life, and like the pink beetle, like all these things that they just made big, like, you know, moments in the book. So I can't wait. I hope they make it a movie, and I hope they make all the movies, because, you know, I'm into it.
Oh, that you bring up that grandma too, because I thought I got a real kick out of the, oh God, don't let her anywhere near me, because I don't want to know. Like, I just don't want to know.
Literally. And the fact that she can't hold it was hard. I'm like, wow. Like, and she was like, you kind of feel for her. You're like, dang, you don't want to know. But then if you don't let her tell you, then she's sick. So you like, again, it's like banging you against the truth. They're like making sure you like accept the truth.
Yep. All right, well, maybe if we all just hope enough, we can make this happen, because that would be very entertaining. So I want to ask you both if you're going to read the next in the series. For those who don't know, this is the first book in what they're calling the Raj series. There's actually, the second one came out last year called, it's based off of Persuasion, and it has to do, the main character is the cousin who is the only character at the beginning of the book who knows both Trisha and DJ.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her name is Anna. She is the main character of the second book. Really exciting. DJ and Trish make, you know, cursory appearances in that book, so you can continue to follow along on their storyline. Third book is coming this summer. So I'm curious, are you guys going to read it?
I think I definitely will. Like, I'm excited to get it. I literally was just like talking to my sister. I want her to read the first book with me, like the entire time I was reading it. I'm like, Jonah, you would die at this part. I really think you would enjoy this part. So I think that I want her to catch up, because I really I enjoy talking about all of it. Like, I really just wanted to talk to her, especially in the moments where like her and DJ were like, DJ wasn't feeling her. I was like, no, I was just like sad. So I really just wanted to have that sister chit chat, that kikiing on the side. So yes, I'm definitely ready for the second book, but I'm going to need a reading buddy again if we're not going to read it together as a group, because I think it's all about the conversations.
I'll read it with you again.
Okay.
And actually, thank you, Kelly. I might have mispronounced it. Is it Rajay? Like Blue Jay? That's a,
Ooh.
I don't know, but that's a great point to call out. So yes, Rajay. See, this is why I love having a group, because now, right when you read it and you don't listen to the audiobook, you just hear how you pronounce it in your head.
Mm-hmm. We love a good fact check.
Oh, okay. Well, clearly I didn't read closely enough. Thanks,
No,
Kelly.
I'm saying thank you for the, like, they're letting us know, because I honestly didn't. I'm the kind of person that I hate trying to just like do it off the dome. I'm always just like, how do they say it? I'm like, how do I research how they say it? Because I'm like the worst. I'm like, I just like hate it. So I appreciate that Kelly let us know. But I 100% want to as well. Like you were saying, Sydnie, the whole like kind of wanting to kiki. Another member of the Buffalo news team and friend that is in the chat that is on right now, Jody, when I was finishing the book, spoiler, I finished the audiobook tonight, just a couple, like an hour before we got on here. I was texting her furiously when it got to really the romance part between them. So I'm a little bummed that it won't be like a continuation on, because that's always when I watch Pride and Prejudice, the movie, I kind of just like sit with the end credits and think about like what Darcy and Elizabeth are doing afterwards, like after they're married and she's Mrs. Darcy. So I would love to have seen that part, but I do just love the way that she writes her books, and would be really excited to see what she does with the next two, since the third one is coming out.
I'm counting down. Yeah, and like I said, I'd be happy to just start a text thread, so we can make it a big group chat if everybody wants to join in and read the second book.
Yeah.
If anybody in the chat has questions for us, or things that you want us to talk about, or insights that you want us to share with the group, please don't hesitate to do that. You know, I read the book, right? I got to cheat. I read the book and then picked it for this, because I wanted to make sure it would be something I thought people might enjoy. But Tiffanie, I think that's super relatable. Like, it's hard to read a full book in between everything else that we're doing in life. And honestly, it's not porch weather yet. You know, I definitely read a lot more in the summer when I can be like, oh, I'm just going to curl up on my porch. If you're driving around North Buffalo, I'll wave to you with a glass of bubbles and a blanket and my dog. And like, that's my favorite way to spend the summer. But, you know, I think it's interesting to me, and it's something I'm thinking about, you know, as we head in to the next couple months, is like, I've done so much reading and it's helped me so much in the last year. Like, how do I try to continue that as our lives get busier and more social again, which I'm incredibly excited for, but also making sure I don't lose that. And also quick assist shout out to the library. You know, that's been for all of us, right? Libby, if you don't have it, try it. If not, you know, always go to the library too. I mean, I'm so grateful for the fact that we can try books on and rent them. The worst things happen to me too, like that, Tiffany, where it lapses on me and then I have to wait 7 weeks to figure out how my book ends. Or as you can see in this case, go out and get it. But yeah, I'm curious if either of you have thoughts, you know, we haven't gotten to yet on the book.
I did just want to hop on what you just said. I'm a new audiobook convert, so I hadn't really listened to audiobooks prior to the pandemic. I'm a huge podcast person though. So some of the times when I would go on Libby to borrow a book, there would be a wait, but then they had the audiobook version. So I basically was just like, I really want to read this book. I don't necessarily need to wait to read it. I can actually listen to it. And since I love listening to podcasts anyway, I just kind of switched that out for the podcast time. So like I mentioned, like when I'm doing errands, when I'm doing like my dishes, when I'm cooking, I'll just throw on the audiobook instead of a podcast. And it still has the same feeling. The only thing that is hard is like, you're like me, I like to like kind of annotate as I go or like pull quotes. And so that is a little bit harder, but you know, like you can just pause it and go back or just kind of like make a mental note. But yeah, I think that I just wanted to point that out just for anyone that's listening. If you're a podcast person, it really is no different and you don't have to kind of worry about, it goes a lot faster than reading because you don't have to carve out that time throughout your day. Like we're all busy. I know that this is all about just like working people in the pandemic. Like how can you get that time for yourself? And I feel like a lot of people have found that time in like those things around the house, or like a couple of people mentioned in the chat, long drives, like when you're going grocery shopping, if you're going like to pick up things, like you can just have that in your ears. So
I totally agree, Tiffany. I'm a big podcast listener. I do love them. I'm like listening to them all the time. I feel like the one thing I really did appreciate, even this is my first like book club, you know, in general, like, you know, outside of just school, you know, we just always used to just talk about it. So I really appreciated. One thing that I really liked about first thing that we realized is just being able, again, to hear the names, you know, to hear and to also to like, to see how people imagine their situation and their read. And so I really appreciated that. I feel like this is something, this book, I really, I feel like one question I also want to ask, like, who do we kind of relate to the most? Like, who do we find the most relatable? And a part of me, I feel like it was like the hardest. I feel like I kind of, you know, thinking about that now, I think I kind of relate to Emma, you know, because in the sense that like she has this gift that she like wants, that she only thinks there's one way to do. Like she really only had one way of doing it. If she didn't have her sight, she was really willing to die. But then she found out after meeting, I think it was it Jane? After she met Jane, that like she could do it and it changed her life. And she was like, there was life after her new way. So I would say, you know, I really connected with her. But and then I just want to say thank you guys for being in my first book club. I'm really excited about it. I feel like it's so exciting.
Well, we are so happy to have that. And I don't know if anybody else if this is their first book club. This is my first book club in probably a decade. And I'm not sure my last book club counted. It might have just been a wine and cheese club, which honestly, everyone is part of the fun of book club.
Yeah.
I love that you brought up that point about Emma and Jane though, because that scene really stuck with me and it meant a lot to me because, right, we followed on their journey with DJ desperately trying to talk her out of her decision or help show her a different perspective. And it took Trisha coming in on a completely different approach that was not prescriptive at all. It wasn't, this is what you should do, this is why I need you to do it. It wasn't the see it from other people's perspectives, like what will this, you know, this will hurt me if you do this. She just came in and said, I'm just gonna, rather than tell her, I'm gonna show her the opportunity and the hope. Like she needed that hope and she needed to see it for herself. And so I thought it was really clever, you know, in the problem solving of, you know, okay, like sometimes you can't talk your way through a problem. Like you just kind of have to have a little bit of faith and try to infuse that hope and see it from their perspective. And so like, I don't know, I keep thinking about that because that site visit where she goes and she's like, wait a second, you know, she can still feel the energy of art that's so important to her. And she can see that, wait a second, I actually can potentially still keep something that's so essentially important to me, but through a different way. You know, it's like you're saying, Sydnie, I just thought it was a really brilliant like subplot of, you know, you can't always convince everybody what you want with words.
And who do you most relate to out of the characters?
I love that question. It's so hard. Because my first instinct is DJ, because he just loves to cook and he loves to eat. And I am Jewish, and so I have that tradition of food is very nurturing. That is how we take care of each other. That is how we express emotion, and it is how we celebrate everything. And so, you know, with Passover coming this weekend, you know, that's a big one for me too, because that is a food holiday. That is matzo ball soup and brisket. Like those are, is there any food more nourishing than that?
Right.
So that idea of taking care of people through food and showing love through food really spoke to me. All you, Tiffanie.
Well, I definitely agree with what both of you guys mentioned. For me, who I most relate to, and I think that I kind of touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but I definitely found myself relating to Trisha, not so much in the first half. Like I definitely was like, who does this girl think she is? Especially when she met DJ and when she called him the hired help, I was like, oh, like I have definitely read books before where it has been like a really unlikable character. So I don't have a problem with like disliking a character because I'm like a super big, like I just like want the good source material. But I was like, excuse you. But once she really started to talk about why, like basically open up and share what the reasoning behind everything, it was like, oh, these are literally like kind of trauma responses, right? And like ways that she is because of the way that she was brought up. And then also just like because of these traumatic things in her life. Like, could you imagine like feeling like you were the reason why your brother was sexually assaulted, like and drugged and sexually assaulted? And just like the kind of like isolation and loneliness that would create, but also just like the fourth wall of her kind of like, I felt like it took me a while to realize because I went from like the book to the audiobook that there was like a narrator that wasn't Trisha. I don't know. I think that I just was like super into it. So I was like thinking that Trisha was narrating it, but then it would be like the different voices, but then there was actually like a narrator. So when it was kind of talking about where it was like breaking that fourth wall of like going into Trisha's mind and like talking through and like thinking of like how she's constantly like overthinking and just like being super like hard on herself for perfectionism and just like trying to meet her family's approval and like trying to meet their expectations. I was like, same. Like I definitely just like because of those parts of me, like I'm super like a perfectionist, like have anxiety, like all those things. I feel like I'm constantly second guessing myself. But and then also on top of that, so this is actually my like not my first book club. I'm also in another virtual book club. And I also tried to start a book club myself here in Buffalo, like literally a couple months right before the pandemic. It was also just a couple of my friends and we ate charcuterie, like bread and cheese and drank wine. So and we like half of everyone didn't even read the full book. So it was just like about the hanging out part and like talking. So I like love this and I'm really enjoying this conversation because like I said, I was like the whole time I was like, oh my God, like I want to talk about this with someone because it definitely it was just like that kind of book that causes conversation. That's why I do think that it's so much of like could potentially be a movie because it has that just like conversation starter. Like it has like all those different kind of characteristics towards it.
I am going to, let's see, we've got a question from the group. What emotion? Pick one emotion to describe this book. I think that one's a tricky one because, of course, all the things that come to my mind aren't emotions. To me, it's self-awareness. And it's actually, it speaks to what Tiffany was just talking about, in that I feel like you went on the same journey with DJ. You know, you got Trisha's first impression and were like, ew, no, thank you. You do not come off very well. And so it's like we get to go on that journey from a really kind of rub the wrong way character to somebody that you find immense connection with. Let's see, emotions.
Maybe chaotic. Like it was definitely like once, like literally I can't keep saying this, like towards the second, like once I get something in my head and I'm just like, I want to get to the finish, it really pushes me to like continue through the book. So once they started dropping breadcrumbs about what happened to her brother, what happened to Ash, and then I was just like, what happened? What happened? What happened? I was like wanting to get through it. And then also like what happened to DJ, like getting those things. So I just felt like there was a constant kind of like struggle throughout that. Like obviously the like romantic part of it and like the giving yourself grace and kind of like finding yourself. But I definitely found it like a little chaotic in a good way, because there's like chaotic good and chaotic bad. So it was definitely chaotic good.
Yep, I relate to that.
Oh my gosh. Is it bad that my emotions were kind of like not positive ones? Like I feel like there was a lot of like, I feel like the first thing that came to my mind, and I didn't want to actually say what the first thing that came to mind was like the word shame. I don't know. I just feel like there was a lot of shame. I feel like there was like, you know, I feel like Trisha felt, she felt shameful for not being with her family. I feel like, you know, they all kind of had like this back, like, you know, as Anisha had, you know, felt shameful for not getting pregnant. There was like all these different things that people just kind of felt, again, because they weren't perfect. They felt like they had to be perfect. And I felt like, you know, it was great to see them work out of that. I feel like love does heal all things and showed us time. And I feel like also honesty, that's where I think this is again, like what the story was trying to tell us is like, you know, these characters, most of everything that they had was like, you know, kind of put on themselves. I would say minus DJ. Like DJ was the only one who I think was like kind of going with the flow, kind of just like, you know, doing his thing. And of course, like the things that were put on him were actual literal pressures that were put on him. But like, I feel like everybody else was just kind of, they were putting those emotions on themselves. And I think it was just allowing us to go through life and just realize that sometimes we are putting pressure on ourselves. Like we are like, you know, even yesterday I was like really trying to like finish the book, and I was like really rushing. I'm like, I'm not enjoying this. I need to enjoy, like, you know, if I want to enjoy this book, I need to enjoy it. And I'm putting this pressure on myself. No one else is, you know? So I think that's you know, what we have to learn is communicate. And then, you know, if we can't get to whatever that vision is, like whatever that piece de resistance that DJ said, you know, it's okay. We just we give ourselves grace and we keep moving on.
I'm dubbing grace. The takeaway from this book is to internalize that grace and be kind to ourselves, for sure. Mm-hmm. There's so many great questions and we're not going to get to them, but we'll throw them in the Facebook event after if you guys want to chime in, and maybe, you know, we'll answer them too. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, in regards to, there was like a question that came up in the chat of like, did this book cause you to reflect on a moment in your life? And I feel like it also kind of like goes into what Sydnie was mentioning of just like having that takeaway of just like how it affected you and like ruminating on that. So like, I definitely felt that as like someone who isn't like, has a kind of like dysfunctional relationship with their family, and like I said, like is super hard on themselves, and is super like just like kind of I think about my life in like terms of like where I am in my career, like what I've done. And so I could definitely, that's why I feel like towards the second I was like, okay, I can relate to Trisha. And it definitely made me think of just like where like why I kind of put that pressure on myself, and like why I kind of like have that perfectionism, how my anxiety plays into that. So yeah, it was definitely a cause for just kind of like, I definitely related and was like finding myself kind of like putting myself in the shoes of the characters.
That's beautiful, Tiffany. Yeah, there was something, and to speak about that, like reflect, I feel like that's probably another reason why I was probably having a difficulty finding that positive emotion with the book, because I really do feel like it's speaking to a part of my life that I'm not there yet. Because Trish was very firm. She was very happy in her career. She like the only thing she was missing was the relationship part at the time. But in that, she wasn't really thinking of that. Her family was more thinking of it than she was. So I feel like in that aspect, you know, I really do want to get further in my career. So I'm not at that point where I'm like, yes, I've made it. But I do understand, like, you know, I hope that one time, whenever I get there, I do have that pride in my profession where I'm like, not like a bitch about it, but, you know, like, you know, I do feel like I'm good. You know, I am here for a reason. I know my stuff and I know my role, and I'm looking to have that like badass, you know, attitude.
We will be there to cheer you on.
Yeah,
that balance. Like, we love it. Like, I was like, yes, Trisha, you can like be excited about yourself, but you also don't have to be like, do you know how much these hands are worth? Like, I imagined her kind of like doing like a little like Paris Hilton-y kind of just like, do you know how much these hands are worth? Like, when she said that, and I would have just been like, okay, like there would have been a different reaction if I was DJ in that moment.
Oh my gosh, talk about a great movie scene. I look forward to that one. I do see we are getting close to our time. I could talk to you both forever, so we'll keep it going. We won't just do it on Facebook, we'll do it on the event landing page that you guys all RSVP'd on. We're also gonna share this video with you. We teased it at the beginning, but we do have a really awesome giveaway for 20 people who signed on tonight. We will reach out to you in the morning to let you know if you're a winner. It is a Buffalo Magazine tote bag filled with lots of local love. So you, in addition to the Buffalo Magazine tote, this awesome mug, because I mean, chai tea, you got to drink it out of something. And these really beautiful Naked Up North Candles is a local candle company. They have a mindfulness collection, and you know, what better fit for the read and for Project Best Life than to be mindful with our candles. So one of those as well. So keep an eye out. Thank you guys so much for joining us. When you close out of the Zoom, there will be a survey. I say that because we desperately want to know what you guys want to read next. So please send us all of your recommendations, and we'll be in touch soon about what we're going to read. Our next book club is at the end of May. So we have more time to read, guys. This is good. And we'll have beautiful porch weather for reading. So when you, so please don't hesitate to reach out, share your recommendations. We'll also, you know, we'll pick our book, but we'll also share your list of recommendations with everybody, because I know we're all looking for good things to read. So I've had a blast with all of you. Thank you for being so great in the chat. And Tiffanie and Sydney, such thoughtful, insightful readers. Like, I absolutely loved this book club. It really rounded out a great read. I feel like I understand it more. I got even more out of it just because of our discussion.
Thank you. Same. Thank you so much for having me. I was so excited and so happy to have this discussion. And thanks everyone for joining us and participating in the chat and Q&A. It was so awesome. And looking forward to the next book.
Yes, agreed. Thank you guys.
Yes, and thank you, Project Best Life, for being our partners on this wonderful event. As you know, reading helps us live our happier, healthier, balanced life together. We will see you all soon. Have a great night.
Awesome. Bye.